caustics are an amazing feature and a natural phenomenon that happens when light passes through a see-through object like glass, for example. It's one of the hardest things to actually render inside of an image in 3D because it takes so many dedicated rays to basically get a good result, right? So there are renderers that focus largely on creating realistic caustics in 3D, like for example LuxCore. And even in these dedicated renders, there's usually a bit of magic going on to make the renders somewhat fast, because without that, the renders would take ages to do. Now, I believe there's an actual way to do caustics inside of Blender, and that's by going over to the render properties, clamping, and then changing this direct and indirect light and making sure you have these caustic settings on, right? Now, again, if we were to do that and use the right settings, I myself don't even know what they are, but if we were to do that, we could technically render this image here, which contains some glass objects like these, and have these caustics, which we can also see in action here and here and here and here, work properly as intended, but the render would probably take several hours to do one single frame, which is insane. So ever since Blender 3.2, they introduced something called ShadowCaustics, which is what you're seeing right here. Basically, ShadowCaustics are caustics which are only available within the shadow. So we're not getting true caustics, but we're getting caustics inside the shadows of objects that we have in our scene, which, you know, generally speaking, is more than good enough. You're not getting a 100% correct image, but like I said, usually good enough. In this scene, we have some water, we have some glass objects, we have an actual drinking glass, and we can see some very nice caustics going on. And it's super simple to set up. Let me just show you what happens if we turn that off. All right, so here's the scene with no caustics enabled. The water is now bland and dark and basically a single shade of blue. We're not getting any caustics on this marble thing here or this little object up here. And our glass shadow doesn't even make sense, because why would light not pass through our glass? Well, you can see some of the light coming in here, basically seeing some sort of resemblance of orange here. And that's to do with these values here. And those are the default values. But again, definitely not a good look for a scene like this. To turn them back on, we simply need to select our light, go over to the data properties, and enable shadow caustics. And there we go. It works again. But that's not all, because we need to make sure that some of these objects in our scene actually know how to work with these caustics provided by this light here. Okay, so here we have it again, right? Again, all the caustics are gone, even though our light is still here, and even though our light still has the shadow caustics enabled. So why is that? Well, the fix is actually really simple, and that is that we need to make sure that Blender knows which objects are casting shadow caustics and which objects are receiving shadow caustics. So that's on a per object level, if you will. And to do that, we just select one of the objects, like for example, this glass here. We go into the object properties, which is the orange square icon here, into the shading tab. And for the caustics, we're just going to make sure we say cast shadow caustics. Again, nothing is going to change because the object that is actually catching our shadow, which is this sort of marble block down here, is not receiving any shadow caustics. So with that block selected in the shading tab, again in the object properties, we enable receive shadow caustics. And once we do that, immediately you'll see that we are now getting the proper shadow caustics that we want from our light here. So at this point, everything is working and we're getting something as intended. These two objects don't have caustics just yet because we still need to enable them. So let's select them, enable cast shadow caustics. And again, for this one, let's do the same. And voila, we immediately get our caustics available to us in these scenes. But what about the water? Well, first of all, the water, if we just select it, which is actually just an ocean modifier, I believe it was, yeah, an ocean modifier with some detail in there. We need to make sure that it's casting shadow caustic. Okay, it already is. But then we have this plane below it, which is catching our shadows, and this one needs to receive the shadow caustics. So into render view and in our camera view here, if we now click on receive shadow caustics, at that point we are getting proper shadow caustics available to us. And yeah, that's how you do shadow caustics. It's really that simple. As a recap, make sure to select your light, enable shadow caustics, then select the object which is supposed to cast the shadow caustics and enable that in the object properties. And finally, select the object which is supposed to catch the shadow caustics or receive them, and make sure to enable that option as well. And once you've done all that, you should be getting caustics inside of your scene. And the great thing is that it's basically completely free to render. It doesn't take that much time at all, and render with or without caustics is maybe 1 to 2 seconds longer. So generally speaking, shadow caustics are a free method to improve the realism in all your cycles scenes. So again, that's how to use shadow caustics inside of Blender. And in the next lesson, we're going to cover how to use light groups.